Huh? No?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't see any reactions.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes, I can hear.
all right, there
Yes.
we go. Everybody can hear me.
I can hear.
Well, welcome to our our experimental meeting. I hope you all have patience with us. We did this pretty well. It only took 8 minutes when Rick and Matt and I were doing it before. Where'd my video go? There it is. When we were doing it before, it took us 2 days.
Making
So
progress.
we're making progress. Are we going to do the usual thing? Max, you want to? They can't hear you.
No.
Wait a minute.
Unable to hear.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
They're not hearing.
Hang on just a second. I'm going to start this microphone.
We'll try this again. My name is Tom Fenner, and I'm planning to drive to Alaska next August. And 3 places that I want to hit is Katmai National Park and spend the day photographing the brown bears. Then to Denali National Park. We can take the park bus in as far as it goes, Lake Wonder. And then up to Fairbanks and Adult Highway over the Brooks Range to Dead Horse and the Arctic Ocean. I'm hoping while I'm at the Arctic Ocean, I can call my sons and say, hey guys, I'm here at the top of the world. And then from there, head home. If we have the time to Dawson City, there's a caribou herd going over the mountains to Dawson City and then down home. And there's some options that we have available. So my phone number is more details on what I have in mind for this trip. And by the way, I've made this before with Tom Silver, if any of you know him, about 5 years ago. And it worked out quite well. So thank you very much. I was asked what kind of vehicle I'm using. I have a get my branding here, Tacoma extended cab with a canopy. I put plywood over the wheel well, a air pad, sleeping bags, store stuff underneath and behind the seats. And
You're going. Oh, well.
No, David Barker asked you to repeat the number. I can just type it in here. What was it? Okay.
That's the latest issue of
Outdoor photographer. Okay. Okay. If nobody else has any announcements, then I think it's time to turn this over to the more interesting portion of the evening. Mike Unger's here from Audubon Society to tell us everything we always wanted to know about Ankeny. Take it away, Mike.
Before we do that, the microphone that everyone is able to hear on Zoom has a low battery and died. Can everybody hear this one? This is the original one. All right, hang on a second.
There we go. Perhaps the fastest growing activity there is now on national wildlife refuges is wildlife photography. And the refuge welcomes any photographers, beginners or advanced. And there's a lot of outdoor adventures there that we'll go over tonight there at the refuge for you to photograph. There's even some blinds on the refuge that we'll point out and we'll go from there. So here's the entrance to the refuge. Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. It doesn't get any better than this. This is an awesome place, and we're going to take you a journey through this incredible environment tonight. Here's the new Ankeny Hill Nature Center. It opened on Saturday, February 5th, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. There's a little information about the refuge. Almost 2,800 acres. And here's how you get down to the refuge from Salem. Just take I-5 southbound towards Albany, take an exit 243. At the top of the exit, you turn right, and once you get to the next stop sign, you can either turn right and go towards the nature center or go straight ahead and you'll go on Windtail Road. Tonight, we're going to start going down Windtail Road, and our first stop on the refuge will be the rail trail. Here's a map of the refuge. So let me get. So here we can see we came down I-5 and took the Ankeny exit turn, and our first stop will be up here, the rail trail. See an overview of the refuge. As you can see, it's mostly agricultural land. Down here, you'll see Pintail Marsh. We'll go down this way and cut across up here. And then here's Eagle Marsh. Those are the two largest marshes on the refuge. As you can see, there's a lot of agricultural land, and here's a lot of wetlands throughout here also. There's a bunch of different habitats at the refuge. This is Eagle Marsh. It's 42 of the wetland acres are permanent wetlands, but it can be up to 186 acres can be permanent wetlands on the refuge, just depending on the management decisions on releasing the water. And then up in the upper left corner, this is seasonal wetland. It covers most of the refuge. Then we have Rec Prairie right here. See some of the water that comes up. It can get up to 6 inches high out in the fields. The bottom left, this is riparian area. So like there's several creeks that run through the refuge: Bashaw Creek, Sydney Ditch, Miller Creek, and Spring Creek. And then in the bottom right, this is agriculture land, and that's what mostly makes up the refuge, is this big swath of land that is planted each year. And then it's used to fodder for wintering waterfowl, including Dusky Canada geese. Of course, I am a birder. So here's some of the birding spots around Marion County. And as you can see, 4 of the top 6 birding places in Marion County are on the refuge. In fact, in 2000, there was a midwinter waterfowl count at Ankeny, and there were over 38,000 ducks and geese. At one time, there were 20,000 dunlin. So just amazing numbers. The rail trail, it's the first place we'll stop along the way. It's a nice trail, about 3/4 of a mile long. It's about a half a mile to a kiosk there overlooking Wood Duck Pond. You can see just entering, this is a trail, just entering, and you walk up this for about a 1/4 mile, and then the rail trail starts out from there. See a map of the rail trail. We came down Winter Road here, turn left and it'll have a sign there for the rail trail. This is all parking lot here. And then you just walk up this trail, and then the boardwalk is right here going out this way. Now you'll see some red little dashes there. Those are the ones that are closed. And certain areas of the refuge are closed between October 1st and April 1st. So we'll point those as we go along the way. But since it's past April 1st now, we don't have to worry about that right now. You can go any place out on the refuge pretty much. So here's the entrance sign to the rail trail on the left. I just have the kiosk here at about half a mile down the trail. And there's a nice photo blind overlook Wood Duck Pond. Here, as you go down the rail trail, this is taken in the winter. You can see as you go down the trail, you'll see water on both sides of you. And this is Wood Duck Pond here on the right. Some of the wildlife you can see here on the left is a frog. And then there's a dragonfly, a flame skimmer dragonfly. But depending on the time of year, you can see all kinds of mammals and wildlife. Here on the left is a longhorn owl. Just this last winter, we had longhorn owls out at the refuge along the rail trail. And we had quite a few photographers out there. It was lined up for a while of photographers getting it, because I think this is a most recent memory I can remember long-eared owls ever seen out there. Here on the right, it's a little newt. Here's the rail trail. And here's the boardwalk portion of it. Now, one photo tip I have, the first one, is you can tell the difference there. Your lighting is going to be different depending on the time of year it is. So as you can see on the left here, it's a little dark and there's shadows there, which cause issues. And on the other side, it's really bright and there's still shadows. So it's one thing you might keep in mind.
Hello, my name is Dave, and I'm a member of the Friends of the Willamette Valley National Wildlife Refuge Complex, a volunteer organization that supports your local Willamette Valley National Wildlife Refuges. I'd like to invite you to walk the trails on our refuges through some of the few remaining native habitats in the valley, and to watch for some of our local birds, plants, and wildlife. Today we're going to visit the Rail Trail Boardwalk to the observation blind at Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge.
So as you can see, there's quite a few things that are being photographed on the refuge, all types of wildlife. So the next place we're going to go is Pintail Egret Marsh Boardwalk. It's a really nice short walk, only about a quarter mile to the kiosk. And there's lots of birds along there, frogs. A bush tit nest is usually there each year. Long wildlife. So we were just right here at the rail trail. We'll go out the parking lot, turn left, and we'll go up here where I have it circled in red. There's a parking lot here on your right hand side. And this is the parking lot for Pintail Marsh and Egret Marsh Boardwalk. It's only not even a quarter of a mile on your right off of Windtail Road, and it's open year round. You can see Bashaw Creek on the left going through, also on the right. This helps create a lot of insects for the birds. You can see the boardwalk on the left. And at the very end of the boardwalk, at the kiosk, this is you're overlooking Egret Marsh here. Some of the wildlife you can see. We talked about the bush tit nest on the right. And here's the boardwalk. Again, here you can see how dark it is on the left and how bright it is on the right. On the left-hand side, it was during the summer, and it's on the right side was a winter without all leaves on the trees. And down at the end, down here near the kiosk, looking down Bashaw Creek, I saw a great horned owl just sitting right on a log out there. So you can see some pretty nice things. Next, we'll go to Pintail Marsh. It's one of the two largest marshes. So from the Pintail Egret Marsh Boardwalk, we turn right out of the parking lot. We just go up a little bit further, and there's a parking lot on your right, and this is Pintail Marsh. And down, if you walk down a little ways here, there's a little kiosk here, but it's not a very good one. It's not in real good repair. And a lot of times it's covered by the blackberries. Here you can see some of the signs around the refuge that say it's only open October 1st to April 1st on certain trails around the refuge. See the edge and the gate going through to the trail. Here's the marsh itself. In this particular situation, the marsh is pretty low, the water, unlike right now, but this is really good for shorebirds. A lot of greater yellow legs, and depending on the time of year, dunlin and dowitchers, sandpipers, quite a few different shorebirds you can see here. Trail with a rabbit on it. Then here on the right, you can see the size of those two. Quite the difference, but the larger one is your Canada goose, and the small one is your cackling goose. Quite a size difference between them. And at Pintail Marsh, the most species have been seen so far is 211 species have been seen here. Next, we'll go up a little bit further on Windtail Road to the Willow Tree. We call affectionately the Willow Tree parking lot. So you're going to come out and turn right again. You'll go across some railroad tracks and just go a little bit further, and you'll see a driveway on your right and see some willow trees, and you can pull in there. It's really good in the winter. For example, you can see American pipits. Sometimes there's horned larks out there. Of course, there's a lot of geese, and on the right side of the parking lot, there's a lot of ponds, and you can see a lot of ducks. Green-winged teal, northern shovelers, northern pintail, for example. So there's quite a few ducks, and a lot of those, sometimes they are quite a ways in the distance, but sometimes they are fairly close in. Just depends on how lucky you are that day. And here's two of the birds we just spoke about. I've seen both of these birds this winter. These sandpipers, and here's northern pintail. Here's a video I did so you can get an idea of the area. It was a little windy this day. But just a huge field, and you can see some of the ponding of the water. This is a wetland prairie. And of the pictures, that's just half of it. I just showed you the left side of it. There's another right side, just as big as this part here. And a lot of the ducks are on this side, and geese are usually over on the left side and towards the back. You can also see great egrets there too. Next, we'll go to the other large marsh, Eagle Marsh. It has the second largest number of birds on the refuge. 202 species have been seen there. So now from the willow tree parking lot here, we go down Windtail Road to the end. We turn right on Buena Vista Road. We'll keep going down Buena Vista Road. You'll go past Sydney Road here, past railroad tracks and Sydney Road, and you'll come up to a parking lot on your right side, and that's Eagle Marsh. I don't believe there's a sign there, but it also has a kiosk there. There's two driveways. It's the kiosk. And this is overlooking Eagle Marsh in the back of trees, and to your right side is a nice trail. Now, one thing I'd say about here is my photo tip is don't come here early in the morning. The sun is just coming in right at you, and it's really bright. Early in the morning, if you're going to be there, I'd say Pintail Marsh is a little better of a place to photograph in the morning. Yeah. Since you can walk out, I think I have a picture of the trail here. You can walk out here to the right side. You just go out over here and walk along the trail that's on the right-hand side. But you could walk back and get on the other side of the marsh and come back this way so you aren't right into the sun. Good point, Stephanie. Here's the driveway. And across, you can see another wetland prairie. We call this the Screet Pond. You can see another one of the marsh as you're walking along the edge. Right now, you're just starting to begin to see the island here again at Eagle Marsh. There for a while in the winter, it was completely covered with water. You couldn't see it at all. And eventually, it'll get so almost the whole island will be showing there. And sometimes you can get some really good pictures there because it's pretty close in from the kiosk. Here's the trail you walk around, sort of a grass trail. My only warning would be at some places it's a little uneven, so watch your step, but it's a decent trail. It's probably about 1.5 miles completely around if you made a complete circle. Here you can see some fields and more ducks in the fields. some coots, some trumpeter swans, also a nutria back here. Next, we'll talk about the Ankeny Nature Center. Like I said, it opened on February 5th. It's been very popular. The first 3 days that it was open, we had like 2,000 people there, and we're getting 1,000 people a week. So it's been very successful. It's open sunrise to sunset. You can see there's a few picnic tables. This is the only place where there's a restroom on the refuge. Right now, because of COVID, it's just a porta potty, but it's kept up well. You can see in the background here, there's an overlook out here. There's a little nature area for the kids here on the left. Here's a picture of the trail around. So this trail is about 0.65 miles, a little over a half a mile if you take the whole route. And this little trail here takes you down to Peregrine Marsh. You can see some ducks and waterfowl real close in here also. And along these edges, you always want to check the edges as you're walking around. Spring Creek comes right through here. There's a red-tailed hawk nest right up here. You go around the edges, a lot of songbirds, song sparrow, Buick's wrens. Out further out in the fields here, past the overlook, red-tailed hawk, northern harrier, American kestrel. During the winter, rough-legged hawk. So a lot of raptors, especially during the winter. And this nature center, it was a joint effort between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Salem Audubon, and the Willamette Valley National Wildlife Refuge Complex. And I don't see him here tonight, but I wanted to say a special word to Ray Temple. I'm sorry he isn't in attendance tonight, but he was one of the key contributors of getting the refuge up and going, and the nature center established. He spent many hours volunteering and was really the goal of getting this nature center going. So we really thank Ray for all of his efforts.
I'll tell him.
Okay.
I'm his representative.
Yes. Here you can see the nature center on the top left, the building itself. There's quite a bit of parking there. Here you can see the nature area for the kids with different activities for them to do. There's even a little bridge over a creek here. This is where the trail starts right over here. Our dream of what it's going to look like when it's all complete. We're very close to starting phase 2, which will be an outdoor classroom down here near Peregrine Marsh. Here you can see the overlook, the sign explaining. You see a nice gravel trail around it. Here's some of the trees I was talking about. The trail goes right down along here, and there's a red-tailed hawk nest up here. And this is the fields where you can see raptors and geese, depending on the time of year. Here you can see the trail. Some of the birds you can see. One of my favorite birds coming up, the Lewis's woodpecker, has been around there. It's a beautiful bird to take and photograph. Most of the time I've seen it down by Peregrine Marsh, down at the end of the trail as you're taking around and halfway around and take that little trail down towards Buena Vista Road. It's been up in the oak trees there. Some other great places around the refuge. You can see some in here, and I'll show you where they're at on the map as it will come up. because around the refuge, there's a lot of little parking lots that you can pull out on. And since they don't get as much use, then a lot of times the waterfowl will be a lot closer and the birds will be a lot closer for you to photograph. So here, where we started coming down I-5 and we took the Ankeny exit, we'll continue the same way here down Windtail Road. This big field here, just before you get to a creek, this big field here is usually where you see the elk. As we continue around Windtail Road, come up, there's a couple more parking lots, but I have this one circled because it's on the right side of Windtail Road, just before the rail trail. And in this field, you can see a lot of tundra and once in a while, trumpeter swans, egrets, lots of different waterfowl in this field. Continue and go past some of the places we've talked about, Pintail Marsh, turn on Buena Vista Road again, right? And then there's a parking lot right here just after the railroad tracks. This is Mallard Marsh here. You can walk out there now. It's a little soggy now, but if in April, May, if you get out here, you can get some rare things that we don't see very often, like black-bellied plover and some other shorebirds that are on their way migrating north. Let's just continue down. Just past Eagle Marsh on your left is another parking lot. It's actually Widgeon and the Foxtail Marsh, but we just call it the Scrape Pond. And out here in the winter is really good. We've seen phalarope and all kinds of shorebirds out here off this parking lot. Then we'll go down a little further on Buena Vista Road. And then on your right-hand side will be the driveway that isn't open yet, but it's a driveway to a Peregrine Marsh just below the nature center. If you just pull in that parking lot, I've had as many as on my field trip, 6 cars being able to park there. And you can look real close into Peregrine Marsh. And if you turn and look towards be a row of trees. And if you look up in those trees, you can see quite a few birds. That's where we've seen the Lewis's woodpecker. You can see some jays and black-capped chickadees. Quite a few different birds are up in those trees, and look at the feeders at the residence that's right there also. Here's just some of the other fields. And you can see some crops were here on some of the fields. The snow geese really like it, and the Dusky Canada geese, raptors, swans, and egrets. Back the upper left one, you can see a lot of geese flying. Here are some snow geese in the background.
What's the time of year people are going to see?
Mostly in for especially cackling geese and the snow geese in the winter. Okay.
Can you go back one slide before the map? Oh, please.
Okay. Here?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. And this is how you also see the tundra swans and great egrets out of these fields, snow geese. These are probably tundra swans, most likely.
Well, spring has sprung and winter is done, and aren't we glad that's true? Hi there, I'm Grant McComey, your host for Travel Oregon's Grant's Getaways. And this week, we enjoy the real pleasures of spring at a place you may have missed called Ankeny Wildlife Refuge, just south of Salem off I-5. And it is a wonderful place this time of year, as we discover it's full of wetlands for wandering to see wildlife. If your commute feels hectic and hurried, consider theirs. 20,000 Canada geese jammed wing to wing, twisting and turning, jockeying for position to gain speed in flight. It is mid-April over Marion County's Ankeny Wildlife Refuge. Clouds of geese darken the sky, prepping for long flights to subarctic homes.
A lot's happening right now. The interior of the refuge is opened up so folks can access through our farm access roads, and wetland berms provides miles of areas to walk and go see.
First, it's just 12 miles south of Salem, easy access off I-5. And then when you get here, they have wonderful boardwalk trails like this one called the Pintail that takes you out to Viewing Blind. But the best part, you're keeping your feet dry.
The boardwalks, they'll meander through forested wetlands and then usually terminate on the edge of a wetland, so you can get a glimpse of what's going on the wetland without being out in the wide open and flushing all the geese or flushing all the waterfowl and the large concentrations of birds.
Ankeny Refuge is a birder's paradise. 2,700 acres, more than 200 species live here or pass through. And soon, all of it will become something more, something special, when the new Ankeny Nature Center begins to take shape in a few years.
First off, it's a really cool site. A variety of habitats around there. It's located on the refuge. The refuge is biologically rich in species diversity and abundance.
Ray Temple is a member of the Salem chapter of the Audubon Society. The group is leveraging more than $1 million from a member's bequest to build a unique partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so Oregonians and visitors alike can learn more about the nature of Ankeny Refuge.
Either one outfit, I think, could accomplish this project on our own, and we're working to build a nature center here that will be really an education facility for folks of all ages to come out and learn about avian ecology, wildlife, nature, and a place for them to really get connected with nature.
It's a good place to bring people to experience nature. We also have the Fish and Wildlife Service as a partner, and they're proving to be really good partners. I expect and hope this will be a really big deal.
Ankeny Wildlife Refuge is open every day, and every day is an escape from the city rush to the rush of wings. The new education center at Ankeny Wildlife Refuge is scheduled to begin construction in the next year to year and a half, and promises to be a very special addition to the refuge property. Also because of the partnership between Salem Audubon and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we'll certainly keep you apprised of the progress in the coming years. We have all the details, directions, contact information, so you can make contact with Ankeny Refuge right here on the Travel Oregon website, so check it out. Until next week, do get out here and enjoy the Oregon outdoors. Let Travel Oregon be your guide. For Travel Oregon, I'm Grant McComey.
Okay, there you go. You saw quite a bit of the refuge, but it's not all about birds. It's about nature. You can see a lot of other things out there to photograph. Here's a list of some of them. There's the weather, beautiful sunsets, insects. Hard to see this one right here. Of course, butterflies and dragonflies. There's 79 species of butterflies that have been observed in Marion County alone. And so 59 of them are common to the Pacific Northwest. They usually are active only in the daytime, and they like the full sun. So early in the morning when the sun first comes up is the best time, once it warms up a little bit. There's also 91 species of dragonflies. 50 species common in the Willamette Valley. There's no animal here, but you can sure tell what it was. There's the elk. But besides that, there's coyote, rabbits, raccoons, nutria, deer, chipmunks, squirrels, like the western gray squirrel and the Douglas's squirrel. Various trees. Of course, flowers. Here you can see on the left footprints from yeah, it looks like it by these little claws. Snake. Also turtles, the Pacific tree frog. First birds. Western meadowlark can pretty much be seen all year round. The Lincoln sparrow is more of a winter sparrow, and definitely the tree swallows. They come in about late February, early March, and leave around September, early October. I'll leave this next slide up a little bit, but here's sort of the seasons for some of the birds. And if anybody wants this, you can just send me an email at Salem Audubon Society at gmail.com. And I'll send you this or any other slides that you would like. Okay, I'll let you know because I do quite a few of these presentations, and I'm starting now one on butterflies, and I might do one on dragonflies too. These are brand new ones, and I'm a very novice at it. But you know, with all the butterflies there are, it's really hard to pick out the ones that you want to have in your presentation. You can't put them all in.
A lot of our members got Ankeny. Ankeny photos. Would you like to have them as you update this?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Send any photos to the same email address. And as you notice throughout the presentation, it's always my policy. I always give credit to the photographer.
So you might
So if you would like to send any of your photos to me for use in a future presentation, you can send them to me, Salem Audubon Society at gmail.com.
Tell us what time of day to go out to see the birds rescue.
Basically any time, but naturally they're most active in the morning.
I mean, sure, he would always go out at dawn. That would be when he'd see most of his.
Right. So
I don't know if that's the best time here.
yeah, it depends. You know, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, now would be a good time. But I usually, it just depends on the time. I've gone out at 11, seen quite a few things, and I've gone out at 11 and not seen much of anything. Stephanie had a question or a response.
Well, while people are reading this, I'd like to tell us and people at home how good.
Sure. So we have many field trips with the Salem Audubon Society. Each month we have one to Minto Brown Park and also one to Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. We also have some to other areas. We go to Shampooey Park, Willamette Mission Park, Kaiser Rapids Park. We just had one at Cubular Wetlands, which was a real good one. And the nice thing about these walks, they're fairly slow moving, and it gives you plenty of time for photography. And we usually have 2 or 3 photographers with us. Also, you're always welcome to come to any of our classes that we offer, webinars, and we have them on birding and mostly on birding right now. But like I said, we're getting to butterflies. And you can find out about all these classes and field trips at our new website, SalemAudubon.org. Also, once in a while, we also have a Facebook page. And that's another thing. If you'd like to contribute photos for our Facebook page, you can send those photos to me also. I believe you can also submit them on our Facebook page, and I can activate it and get them up on the page. But one of the local photographers here that many of you might know, Jim Leonard, I get quite a few photos from Jim and put them on there. In fact, I've got about another 24 to go through to get up on the Facebook page right now.
Can people still respond to the Audubon newsletter for miscellaneous stuff?
Sure. For right now, you could just send them to me, and if you just designate them for the newsletter. Right now, we just are starting this month to have a new person take over the newsletter, Mike Williams, and we'll get the address out to you of who to send them to here. I'll give that to Rick so he can send it out and give it over to Stephanie or both. Oh, another thing that you probably already know, and a lot of photographers, especially Jim Leonard, at these marshes such as Pintail and Eagle Marsh, it's very nice to use your car as a kiosk or as a place to take your photos from. He just has this big camera sitting on the window aimed out, and he gets quite a few pictures. That way you don't scare off the wildlife by getting out of your car, slamming the car door, etc., and seeing movement. So it seems to work for a lot of birds, and especially when you don't want to be out there in the winter in the cold. So a couple of things to keep in mind. It's free to go out there. Like I said, the only restrooms are at the nature center now. Any of the trails are year around. There are some that where those signs are posted, the little white and blue signs would tell you. So make sure you follow the signs, and it's not the season. Don't disturb the wildlife. There's been a few car thefts there. It hasn't been too bad, but make sure you lock your cars, store away, or take your valuables with you. There's been one probably in the last 3 months, but it just seems to happen every so often. Like I say, don't ignore those roadside pull-offs. And the biggest thing is to try not to disturb nature as much as you can and still get close enough to get your good photos. Some resources, and I can definitely, if anyone wants this, just email me and I'll send you this list. In fact, many of these are right here. You can look afterwards, and you might take some photographs of something and think, what is this? I have no idea. Well, there's a lot of good things, including some just for the Pacific Northwest that are good books you can use for identification. One of the best things I found is iNaturalist, a free app. You do have to sign up for it, but it's pretty non-intrusive, and you can take photos with your iPhone, or you can take photos and later upload them on the computer, and then it will identify them. You can share them with others, and they'll tell you, oh, this is a correct ID, or here's what we think it is. And so that's a great resource to use. If you didn't want to sign up, you could use Seek. It's by iNaturalist. You don't have to sign up, but it's mainly for kids and isn't quite as inclusive as iNaturalist. Just some conservation notes. I always like to think about conservation, and the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife is doing a great job with conservation at Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. They're trying to keep down the weeds and plant native plants, keeping the water management at good levels so that there's plenty of water for the birds and waterfowl, and they're trying to restore the native oak habitat. So with that, I really thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation here. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or I'll stay afterwards too. Yes.
This isn't really a question, but there's also a Facebook page called Friends of Ankeny.
Yes, true. There is a Facebook page, Friends of Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. In fact, I post my bird report there when we have a field trip to Ankeny National Wildlife Refuge. I post our report of what birds we saw. And if it's a rare bird, I'll even put where we saw it at. It was on the left side of Eagle Marsh. Yes, Stephanie.
Any comment on pets in the refuge?
On what?
Dogs and cats.
Oh, yes. I guess dogs and cats aren't allowed. And so, yeah, keep your dog at home and your cat. Of course, the reason they aren't allowed is because of how much of a disturbance they are to the wildlife.
I'm the official trash picker upper. Out in May and get bags from Marion County. Bags, and if anybody wants to go with me, it's kind of a fun outing to go around the road and pick up trash and see what there is to see. I haven't picked the date of the game, but that's one of the trash picking up adventure.
Let me know the date and I'll put it out on the Facebook page for Salem Audubon. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, any questions out there?
I've gotten a lot of milkweed out there, and so this year we're going to see monarchs in Salem. And the reason I know is because 2 years ago, only 2,000 monarchs were counted over winter in Southern California. This past year, 250,000 monarchs were counted over winter. Nobody knows why. They will start showing up in Salem in June and July, and I know because I planted them. There's milkweed in that garden marsh and little nature center. So if we're going to see public, monarchs, that would be a good place. And I would love if you took photographs and put one on Naturalist so that the scientists can keep track of them. So, thanks. Well, they did go down to Mexico, but well, there's some crossover down in Arizona, and it's possible at least they go to California. They may not go to Mexico. But anyway, they're almost extinct in Western migration. They had a big rebound. So if I raise them, they're going to try and people look for them in Southern California. Our tag monarchs is found 6 times.
Good.
So I'm staying home this summer.
We stop recording now?
We get tags from David James, who's a professor at Washington State. And would you hold up this monarch for me, please?
Okay, good. Exit out.
So you catch them.
Did you want the presentation back up?
And then someone is ready with a little sticker, and there's a specific place that you put it on. You can put it on the sticker yourself, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Yeah, the sticker is tiny, it's not as big as my fingernail. And they're just like fruit stickers, like eat a banana stickers, and they have a serial number and email address at Washington State. And people know to look for them. And you put them on correctly so that when the butterflies hanging like this, they can read them. You don't put it on screwy. And then people down there know to look for them. In fact, they have an organized Thanksgiving monarch count. And they take pictures of them and they report them to WSU. So
There we go.
Yeah, it'd be great if you all looked for monarchs and reported them on iNaturalist, because scientists around the world pay attention to iNaturalist.
That's it. Are we done?
I don't know if anybody out there before everybody leaves. Everybody here? Good for people to do, right? But I have a monitor, it's a 40 by 720, I think. And then this is all free, but there's a monitor and the ink for a Canon Pixma MX 922, the XL, all the ink, all of it's free, and you can have it if you want it.
You need more Jack, don't you?
Yeah, you need some more credit.
Well, I think that's it, folks. You can hang around and talk among yourselves if you like.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.